back. Rock-throwing attacks by Palestinians often make the headlines in Israel. Less reported is rock-throwing attacks by Israeli settlers against Palestinians. Israeli watchdog Yesh Din has observed a rise in violence coming out of the settlement of Yitzhar in the Samaria region of the West Bank. Our investigative reporter Eylon Levy went to speak to the Palestinian residents suffering from this violence.
Last year, they attacked the school, for example, during the year 3 or 4 times. But this year, I see that in a week 3 times. The settlers always, they begin the violence.
These men throwing stones are not Palestinians. They're Israeli settlers, and it's a Sabbath pastime.
This
is the hotspot of the West Bank. It is very quiet now, very pastoral. But everything can flip in a second, because the settlers can come down from the outpost in a moment and start throwing stones, and that's how it starts. In the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the most common weapon is not a gun or a missile. It's this primitive weapon, a rock. Palestinian stone-throwing incidents are well known and often fatal, but in recent weeks, Palestinian villages surrounding the settlement of Yitzhar and the neighboring outpost of Givat Ronen are reporting a worrying uptick in rock-throwing attacks from Israeli settlers.
They have become more daring lately. They reach my house and they are mostly armed. We are living in hell. We live in fear. We are not really living.
So we're deep in the West Bank with Yesh Din, an Israeli NGO that documents violence against Palestinians. We're talking about really extremist settlers who are here for ideological reasons. They think that through force they can deter the Palestinians from accessing their own land, which lets them take over more and more land. The Palestinian village of Urif.
Last week, the settlers attacked the school 3 times on Sunday, Wednesday, and Thursday. They threw stones at the windows of the school, as you see, from this point. Also, they went to the other side of the village and broke windows of houses there.
Clashes developed between the settlers, the Palestinians, and the Israeli army.
When the settlers attacked the school, all the people in the village come to this area to protect their school, to protect their children. They take out the kids from the school to their homes. Cars come here and take the children. And also, they stand face to face with the settlers throwing stones at each other.
October 11, 2:30 p.m. Over 15 Israelis in cars from Yitzhar throwing stones at Palestinians waiting at a checkpoint. October 12, Palestinian woman Aisha al-Rabi killed on Route 60 when settlers reportedly threw rocks at her car near the Tapuach junction. The killers still at large. October 14, 4:45, a group of Israelis descend from the illegal outpost of Givat Ronen, throwing stones at Palestinian farmers between Burin and Hawara, spilling their olives, even stealing their awning. Morning of October 20, Burin.
The farmers started harvesting their olives. Within half an hour, a group of settlers from Yitzhar descended on the farmers and entered their lot, which is over 1.5 kilometers away from the settlement, and started throwing stones at the family harvesting the olives. After 15 minutes, the border police arrived. The settlers saw them and ran away back to Yitzhar.
Barely an hour later, an attack from the other direction. Settlers spot Palestinians erecting a fence around a house the owner says is a regular target.
We had already started putting the fence up and we could already see the first settler heading towards the house. I told my friends, look out. And in fact, within 5 minutes, there were about 50 of them and they started throwing rocks at the house. They damaged cars, the windows in our house. And that's what happened. The same thing as every Saturday. It's been like that for 15 years. What else can I say? They come at any time. At 1 in the morning, 5 in the afternoon, all day. When we are sleeping, when we are up.
We reached out to several residents and officials in the settlement of Yitzhar to hear their version of events and verify the facts against their story. Unfortunately, all of them refused to cooperate with us. One resident even telling us it was a provocation that we were in the area in the first place to investigate this story.
Rock-throwing attacks by settlers are rarely fatal, but the killing this month is a reminder of the constant threat. Will the Israeli army get a grip before the attacks claim another life?
Eylon Levy, Urif, the West Bank, for i24NEWS.
Now, both the settlement of Yitzhar and the Israel Defence Forces declined to comment for this report. But joining us now, Yishai Fleischer, who's a political commentator and a resident of Hebron in the West Bank. Yishai, a pleasure to have you with us. Now, Palestinians say they're coming under increasing attack by Israeli settlers that are throwing rocks. You heard that report. As a settler yourself, tell us your perspective.
First thing, I think that to have a report and to play it, but while admitting that you didn't get the other side, that's an amazing piece of reporting there. My perspective is that we're at war right now. We are at war in Gaza with rockets being, with balloons, explosive balloons. Right now, rockets are holding, except for 2 weeks ago where, a rocket blew up a house in Beersheba. We're under attack in Judea and Samaria. I saw a dead terrorist this past Monday who came to stab a soldier in Hebron. And the incitement that just does not stop coming out of the Palestinian Authority. So really, we're really actually at a Palestinian war against Israel. And to me, it's ironic that this whole report, so-called report, is one that focuses on rock throwing that has been not substantiated by the police or by the army, that they don't know that that woman was killed by Israeli settlers. But what is known, and what is all over the news, is that Israel is under constant attack, at war, really, from various elements of the Palestinian war machine.
So our correspondent did, in fact, the comment was that they declined to comment. He did reach out to both the settlers that are being accused and the IDF who did decline to comment. But do the violent actions of these settlers who are throwing rocks at Palestinians, do they undermine their own cause?
First thing, let me be unequivocally clear. We condemn any kind of violence against Arabs. We condemn vigilante action. We're against it. We're 100% against it. Officials are against it. The Israeli police, Israeli military, the Israeli system, and settler leadership is against vigilante violence. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's just that clear. Does it undermine the cause? Look, it's a region that has violence in it, and sometimes when people get pushed around, they push back. What your story fails to tell, and what is obvious from a Google search, I just typed in the word Yitzhar, the first thing that came up in the Google News search was that soldiers were attacked by 15 Arab throwers in the village right next to Yitzhar, and there is provocation from folks coming up to places like Yitzhar, trying to act like they're, peaceful olive pickers, but in fact are trying to encroach on land. And because there is a violent atmosphere out there, because Jews feel like they're being attacked, so they push back. Again, we're against vigilante violence 100%, no ifs, ands, or buts. However, the reality on the ground is that when people get pushed around, people react.
Yishai Fleischer, we really appreciate you sharing your perspective with us. Thank you for being with us. We now move into studio. Former Palestinian Affairs Minister of Detainees and Ex-Detainees Affairs Ashraf Al-Ajrami and political and security analyst Amir Oren. Amir, first let's get a bit of insight off the back of that because, of course, as was mentioned in that report, the settlers are in fact allowed to carry guns. Tell us a bit about that.
It all depends on your point of departure. Israel took over the West Bank, which is also called Judea and Samaria, by Israelis in 1967 in order to defend Israel proper, the sovereign state of Israel, which is bordered by the so-called Green Line. And it did so because it was attacked. For instance, one of its main Air Force bases at Ramat David was shelled from the Jenin area. So in order to forestall such dangers, the army moved in. By virtue of this occupation, the population also came under occupation. Many people left or were driven out, but most stayed there. Now, you have geographically 3 strips of land. You have the so-called Jordan Valley, which is basically barren, and it has mostly Israeli settlements. You have Judea and Samaria, where it's intertwined, mostly Arab towns and villages, and some cities, you may say, with Israeli settlements. And then you have Israel proper. Israel started out defending itself. Now that the settlements are there, they too demand to be defended, and therein lies the problem.
All right, they see it as a personal security. Ashraf, yesterday we heard Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's Prime Minister, say that it actually benefits the Palestinian Authority to have Israeli military in the West Bank, effectively saying that if it wasn't there, then West Bank would become what Gaza has become. What do you say to that?
It is nonsense, because what happened in Gaza Strip is a result of an Israeli decision, one-sided decision taken by Sharon at that time, and the evacuation from Gaza Strip was a decision without any coordination with the Palestinian Authority when there was a chaos in Gaza Strip, and Hamas were stronger than Hamas forces were stronger than the Palestinian Authority forces. It is not the same thing.
Netanyahu is saying that the Israeli government was able to thwart attacks, assassination attempts that are on Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, and they're actually helping the Palestinian Authority to stay safe.
No, it is not true, because when we started our security coordination recently after 2007, when we established Salam Fayyad government, we as government entered the refugees camp. We dissolved all the gangs and the military group, everything that we did security even for the Israelis in the West Bank. This is the opposite. What Netanyahu said is not true. The main truth is there is security in the West Bank. The West Bank, because the security service, the Palestinian security service, do their best to keep security.
What did you want to say? But what's your take on that?
Well, the cooperation between the Israeli security and military forces and the Palestinian forces is mutually beneficial. Israel, of course, gets the benefit of Palestinian knowledge about what is happening there, and it too, because it keeps the West Bank under surveillance, it too can help the Palestinian Authority. But the comparison that Netanyahu made between Gaza and the West Bank is false, because Israel has decided not to reoccupy Gaza. It could have. Now, it's true that as long as it is positioned in the West Bank, it is easier for it to defend Israel proper. But there are ways of means of doing it, even by remote control, even if it leaves the territories. One more point. Right after Mahmoud Abbas took over from Yasser Arafat, it was premature for Israel to leave the West Bank, because at that time Hamas could have overtaken it. And perhaps even Abbas would have preferred Israel to stay a bit longer. But now he is able to take charge of the territory.
Ashraf Al-Azrami and Amir Oren, thank you for that insight. It does bring us to the end.